So I want to tell you that I'm going to read some poems from this new book available on Amazon called Grand Slam, and I have some copies here if you're interested. All of my poems are completely original. There's nothing derivative. There's nothing copied at all. And I'm going to start with a poem called Creativity at its Best. To be or not to be. That's the answer to our prayers. I made up the first line. I'm proud of it. It's catchy, like Beethoven's Fifth. I made that up too this morning. I'm having a burst of creativity. Let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. And my next poem is called Puppy Love. Now, this is an interesting poem because I wrote this poem, and I needed a character in the poem who was really like Casey, you know, Casey at the back, who was this great hero. Of course, Casey strikes out. It doesn't work. So I thought, well, is it Babe Ruth? But that would mean that the listeners all have gray hair like me, so that wasn't going to work. So when I wrote the poem, I picked Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod. And when I wrote the poem about 2 years ago, it was pretty good. And then a friend of mine looked at the poem and he said, A-Rod, boy, that's so interesting. You know, steroids, all kinds of problems. So I said, wow, I never noticed that. And I figured, who would have picked? And I couldn't quite figure it out. So I ended up with Derek Jeter, sort of a guy who was okay, carried the hero's role. So this poem is called Puppy Love. Oh, baby, puppy love. It's like springtime for rednecks. Springtime in the midst of a monsoon. Springtime when all cicadas are screaming their legs off at full bore. And there's a lightning storm and thunder. And Jeter just hit a grand slam home run in the bottom of the ninth. 2 outs, 2 strikes, and the Yankees win the World Series. And there's some passion and mooning and spooning and holding hands and that kind of mushy stuff too. But that's mostly for girls, because for guys, they're thinking home run derby, firecrackers, and red hot tamales. And the next poem I'm going to read also was one that after I wrote it, I began to think, gee, this is like perception, because with politics and evolution of things, what seems clear at one time has a slightly different meaning. The name of this poem is What's Below My Feet. And I also had a friend who was an artist who was very concerned with this notion of if you go straight down through the earth, there's like another town that matches you. He met people and he did paintings of little villages, islands that matched other places that were kind of incongruous. So this is called What's Below My Feet. China. China is right there, below my feet. There is a man walking to work now, if you look closely, waiting for the bus and laughing with his neighbor. It's night there, so it's hard to see from here. His little daughter is playing with a hoop and kissing him goodbye. They're singing a song, but it's hard to hear from here. He laughs, I'm sure, thinking that my feet are facing his, and he recognizes my soles as the ones he made last summer. Then one day I was taking the train up to pick up a used car that I was buying. And I saw that there was someone last minute told me that Car Talk Radio was having a contest for poetry. And if you won this contest, you could get $2,500, which is like a $300 million lottery for non-poets. And I was on the train and I started writing a few poems. My car poems, and I never submitted them because I sort of knew what they wanted and I didn't think I had written. I hadn't had the word car or road in the poem. Anyway, this one is called Don't Forget Oil. The other day, my car talked to me, called at work, and said, "Don't forget oil on your way home. And air, bring air too." "Okay," I mumbled. Weeks later on the road, we never raised it, as if the conversation had never happened. This is a poem called Buzz's Place. We didn't go there often, but it was always a treat. I loved the booths, but Mary liked that round table where they put the white tablecloth that ran down almost to the floor, so she could scoot underneath and hide in the middle of the table underneath, eating the whole meal there sometimes. I hated when she'd say, "Pass the salt." I'd ignore her like out of sight, out of mind. But she'd just say it louder and louder till someone would give in to her and pass the salt. She always got her way. I didn't like it much, but that was then. This is now. Pass the ketchup, Marty. One time, I saw on the menu, fried starfish. No way, I thought. But still, I pretended it was no big deal and skipped it entirely. This is a poem I wrote on a Monday. My wife had been up in the country. We had a lovely weekend in the country, and then I said, "I'll stick around. I don't have to get back to the office right away. I'll stick around." And she said, "Okay, I'll get back and I'm going." So I was in one of these moments where you're happy to be alone, but you're sort of reflective and longing a little bit. So this was the Monday morning or the Sunday night reflections. It's called In the Air. In the end, nothing mattered but her smile. We remembered it in the shower, or passing the staircase, or by the garden where the rose bushes stood as thorns and sticks, still too early in the season. Inside, he felt it when he heard her voice, or when he smelled perfume on a passing subway, or left in an elevator behind. In the end, its warmth left him thriving, sustained, like toast, hot and crisp, with butter melted, nothing else to eat, nothing more needed, honey floating in the air. We have a 2.5-year-old grandson. So I've been following the evolution of 2.5-year-olds. And this poem is called Traffic. It's inspired by Abe. In the rush of traffic, a boy stood near the curb, clinging to the hand of his mother, waiting to cross the street. Please take me there, he thought, but there were too many cars. Please take me now, he thought, and she did, one step at a time, until the traffic applauded at the mastery of so minor and epic. In keeping with this theme of little people, we were in Zurich this past spring. We were on one of these long boats that go, different stops along the way, going to the lake. And we got on the boat. There was this tiny little girl in front of me, and it just connected in a way that I had to get off the boat at the end and write this poem called Lake Zurich. A tiny girl in hot pink, filigree earring dangling, sat in front of me on the long, low boat getting into Lake Zurich waters. Swans danced at our side. The tiny pink girl turned to watch me. I made a clicking sound. Our eyes laughed together, mutual delight. She stretched her tiny fingers toward me. I clicked again. Our eyes widened. She stretched her hand far, reaching to touch my fingers to connect, to say hello. How old is she? I asked the man next to her. Oh, 1.5, he said, with German accent and smile. What friends we had become, I thought, as I disembarked at the next stop. The boat heading on, chestnut trees moving. Now I'm going to read a poem from my book, Ram's Land. Here it is, available, which I wrote a while ago. It's a little bit about phases of life, aging, my hatred for autumn. And the problem I have with this poem is most of the times when I read it, I end up crying. So I will read it just passionately and hope nothing happens. Tomorrow never comes, but it's here right now, in the living room with me. Right next to my chair, the grayish one with the stripes from the old days in the office. When sitting in the corner in the cushy chair was like taking a holiday in Spain or Paris, even before the airlines needed to whisk you away to Saint-Tropez. I had a trophy there, an award performance, remembered fondly by the walls, the sheetrock, even the window, the fluorescent lights that watched from their off position, the whole dance, played out against gray carpet, a few chairs and a table or two. Well, there it was in this setting, where those miraculous 40s passed by, where the power of our life was realized, where the strength of mature adulthood took its mark and left it with strength as powerful as we were going to be. That's where we made our mark. That's where we became from our 30s, boy wonders on the move, to our 40s, boy wonders having moved, life, art, music, sex, divorce, children, partnerships, new cars, new homes. All these things took shape in the 40s. So rich, so strident, so full of taste buds delight, yet filled with the lack of self-awareness that only hindsight brings to bear. Here the 50s redound. What do they speak of? But futures with a different sense of self. Futures with a less powerful push, with less oomph than I can do it. Oh, I can do it, oh yes. But sometimes in the mirror of my shadow on the walk, or just watching the flip of a leg over a bike, I see the movement of an old man, the stiffness that places the fluid movements of youth into old man categories, and straightens and curves and makes the leg less swoopier. It's a hint, but it's there. We've all seen old men and old women dance. It's that dance that wants to audition now with a new part that smiles, that says polymit instead of crest. We see it as not bad or sad, but changed so much that even autumn can be tolerated now. Even autumn that hurt me so in the past, that made me cry with its meanness, its stealing of the warmth of the long days, of the chirping nights. That mean, harsh autumn, all dressed up in fancy clothes, never fooled me. I hated its mean endings and its gifts of ice-cold gray streets. That autumn, that same autumn, comes now like an old non-friend, almost tolerable, sometimes showing its good side, its sweetness spurting behind its flesh. And I can say, ha, here's old autumn again. He'll be gone before the night is up. Let's see his dress and his swank this year, because spring, our beloved, will be here before you can say blink. Because with age comes speed, comes life as a rollerblade wheel that spins and circles at its own momentum,